They grew up without warning labels, without emotional manuals, and without anyone asking how they felt. Generation X learned early that silence was safer than vulnerability and independence was survival. They watched the world change before it learned how to explain itself. This is the psychology of Generation X, the generation shaped by absence more than attention. Generation X grew up in the space between old rules and new freedoms. They were raised by parents who were often busy, distant, or simply exhausted by life. Many came home to empty houses and learned to solve problems alone. This early independence didn't make them fearless. It made them self-reliant. Psychologically, this created a deep internal strength mixed with quiet, emotional distance. They learned not to expect help, praise, or constant reassurance. As needs were handled privately, emotions were managed internally, and resilience became normal. But resilience built without support often hides unspoken emotional weight. They watched authority figures fail more than once. Divorces, layoffs, political scandals, and broken promises shaped their worldview. Trust wasn't given easily, because trust had to be earned through consistency. This made Generation X skeptical, not cynical, but cautious by experience. But wait till you hear this part, because Generation X is often misunderstood. They are labeled cold, detached, or indifferent by younger generations. In reality, they feel deeply. They just don't advertise it. They were taught that emotional expression was private, not performative. Generation X values authenticity over approval. They don't chase trends, validation, or constant visibility. Their confidence comes from competence, not applause. If they show up fully, without needing recognition. Another key psychological trait is adaptability. They lived through analog childhoods and digital adulthood. They learned to adjust quietly while the world reinvented itself loudly. Change didn't excite them, but it didn't break them either. Emotionally, many Gen Xers developed a strong inner compass. They trust their judgment more than external opinions. This makes them excellent problem solvers and grounded decision makers. But it also makes asking for help feel uncomfortable, even when needed. Generation X carries a subtle grief for a world that felt simpler but wasn't necessarily kinder. They remembered life before constant connectivity, before everything needed documenting. When privacy mattered, boundaries were clearer, and silence had value. That memory shapes how they engage with modern life. What happens next will surprise you, because Generation X didn't become invisible by accident. They stepped back intentionally, choosing stability over spectacle. They built lives quietly, while louder generations competed for attention. In next part, we'll uncover the emotional cost of that strength, the hidden struggles they rarely speak about, and why Generation X may be the most emotionally complex generation of all. Generation X strength came from necessity, not encouragement, and that distinction matters deeply. They didn't grow up being told they were special. They grew up being told to be practical. Life rewarded competence, not expression, and survival came before self-discovery. Over time, this taught them to endure quietly rather than ask loudly. Emotionally, many in Generation X learned to downplay their own struggles. They saw parents stressed, systems failing, and security feeling temporary. Complaining felt pointless when everyone else was just trying to get through the day. So they internalized stress and learned to carry it without ceremony. But wait till you hear this part, because that emotional containment had a hidden cost. Unexpressed emotions don't disappear. They settle into the body and the nervous system. For many Gen Xers, this shows up later as burnout, emotional fatigue, or quiet dissatisfaction. Not because they failed, but because they carried too much for too long. Generation X often became the emotional bridge between generations. Yet they supported aging parents while guiding younger children through a rapidly changing world. Responsibilities stacked up without much recognition or relief. Being dependable became their identity, even when it became heavy. What happened next will surprise you, because despite all this, Generation X didn't lose hope. They simply stopped romanticizing it. Hope became practical, grounded in effort rather than promises. They believe in showing up, not wishing things into existence. Psychologically, this makes them highly realistic and emotionally steady in crises. They don't panic easily because instability feels familiar. When things fall apart, they focus on what needs to be done next. This calm competence is often mistaken for emotional distance. Yet, beneath that steadiness is a longing few talk about. And many Gen Xers wish emotional conversations were easier. They want connection without drama, depth without exposure. But vulnerability feels risky when you grew up learning to rely only on yourself. Another misunderstood trait is their relationship with happiness. They don't expect happiness to be constant or loud. For them, happiness is peace, reliability, and moments of quiet satisfaction. It's found in stability, not excitement, and meaning, not applause. Generation X also struggles with visibility in a world built for constant sharing. They don't instinctively perform their lives online. Privacy still feels like safety, not secrecy. But this can make them feel overlooked in a culture that rewards noise. What happens next will surprise you, because Generation X is quietly redefining strength. They are learning, slowly and carefully, that asking for help is not weakness, that emotions can be shared without losing dignity, that survival doesn't have to be the final chapter. Psychologically, healing for Generation X isn't about reinventing themselves. It's about allowing softness alongside strength. It's about unlearning silence when connection is safe, and realizing that caring less doesn't mean becoming less. If you're part of Generation X and this felt familiar, you're not alone in it. Your strength was forged in a world that didn't pause to explain itself. If this deep dive into generational psychology resonated with you, support this channel. Like the video, subscribe for more human-centered psychology stories, and comment what growing up taught you about yourself.